Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. Tonight I'm going to be painting this DBZ painting again, doing the whole Ginyu Force. I'm going to be building up all the values and trying to get somewhere where this is looking like it's somewhat moving further ahead and closer to being done. We'll see how far along we get. But yeah, we're going to listen to music, hang out. I'll take questions from the chat if you got any, or you want to know anything about whatever involving art or career stuff, anything like that. Feel free to drop it in there. And yeah, if you're a patron and you're wondering when is the comic challenge review that we're currently doing, it's like, okay, tomorrow night, this time, we're going to do the same thing we usually do. We just run through everything. I'm going to see if I can get help from somebody else to judge the challenge because Kim's not going to be here. So I might call up Dan or something, see if he's available. We'll see what happens. But anyway, hello everybody. Time to paint some DBZ stuff and listen to some goth music. And hopefully this goth song doesn't get us banned from copyright. Oh, that's so awesome to hear that people are using Krita. I see Dan in there and somebody else talking about it. Scott. It's great. It's so much easier to sketch around with the chrome brushes. I mean, if I could just like show kind of what I've been doing for my regular workday, like I do all my thumbnailing at the bare minimum. I do all my thumbnailing, and I also sketch all of my like painted backgrounds in Krita. And then I render them up in Photoshop after that. It's so much easier. It just moves. It's like free flowing ink when you're using those sketching brushes. Let's see if we can stay in that baseline. I really gotta learn how to sing like this. I'll do a finger painting soon. You'll see.
Waters for washing, vino tintos for drinking. I hate when you get too high sometimes and forget about existing. All the simple silhouettes in here make me nervous in my insides. Take my outsides for a ride. Any shape that you can twist them into tonight.
Sorry, I'm trying to find some, like a full playlist that I know is relatively safe. The only one I got, let's see. Yeah, we can do Carpenter Brute and stuff. But then Michael Jackson's right after that. Phew. Let's do this. Maybe we'll get away with this. How can I tell what I'm doing coloring wise? I'm not really worried about that. I'm just worried about getting my values down. I don't have an adjustment layer or anything on top of this. I focus like exclusively on the values, and with the sketching chrome brush you get this nice color jitter that happens. So I just let that happen, and I kind of just will use the eyedropper to just kind of select around with what colors drop here and there, and if it's leaning red or if it's leaning blue or whatever, I just kind of lean into that, and then drop it down on the canvas and keep painting with it, eyedropping and whatnot. But I adjust all the colors after the fact, so I like to keep my values super light like this because it forces me to think in like a mid-range, so I never go too dark with my values, which I can tend to do. So I just feel like if I keep it in this stage for a while, it continually feels like a sketch I'm refining rather than a final thing. I don't know how fundamental that is for like everybody, but it definitely works for me because it helps me stay in the right mindset while I'm rendering. Like, alright, don't feel like I've gone too far with values or overdone something too early or whatever. Like, it just helps me kind of stay focused, and as long as I'm in this range I can go darker and further refine and build my values very slowly. So that's the reason for it. It's very easy for me to take these values that you're looking at right here in the painting and then just very quickly adjust them to be final looking values with the real colors that I'm going to use and everything else. So yeah, it's really like no problem at all. I just find that this is the best approach for me. And I do the same thing with like pencils, like slowly building up values and whatever, but like this is that same idea but for painting. And then I kind of use this approach, this style with this chrome brush in Krita as like a underpainting, and then I'll paint on top of it to kind of break up the textures and whatnot, because the textures can feel very samey when you use this brush. But I find that this is such a quick way to get down value that I can really just refine everything in another program. It's like I use like textured brushes and whatnot in Photoshop to like add some variety in there, especially if I'm doing backgrounds. Like I'll sketch in a whole background. Like this morning I did a really quick test with like a background landscape, like mountains and hills and things. Are there any inspirational quotes that you live by? There actually are some things, like I know you're kind of joking, but like there actually are some ones that I think about all the time. One that's just easy to remember that I have to remind myself of all the time is if you're not working on hard enough problems. What is it? How does it go? Let me think about it for a second. I'm distracted by sunglasses at night. Basically, it's saying that if you're not working on hard enough problems, then you're basically just wasting your time. I can't remember the exact quote. It's some dumb rhyming quote where it's saying that that's a big problem if you're not working on hard problems. But in all reality, I have to think about that because you can get very complacent. You can get comfortable and be like, oh, am I actually thinking while I'm doing this anymore, or am I just on autopilot? And as long as I'm thinking about stuff while I'm working and I'm focused and I'm in the moment, actually like concentrated on a real, thing that I can learn, something that I'm challenged by, it's like then I'm doing something right. But if I'm just wasting my time painting for no reason, whatever, I'm not trying to do anything difficult, I'm just coasting, and I try not to do that, because then you stop improving. Do I ever wear my sunglasses at night? No. I wear my regular glasses because it's hard to see stuff. It gets blurry. Korean people says, "Can you please help me?" That's a wild message to get. Of course I can. Oh, there you go, Kim. That's a good one. Pig in the pen, she won't sleep with other men. Pig in the barn, she's out under some other guy's arm. That's how I know Kim's upstairs. Messed up. Eric Ravola says, in my character concept process, I tend to be more of a fixer when I iterate repeatedly on a single sketch until I'm pleased. I feel like the problem is that all my best work nets me a single image instead of the series of sketches iterations that art directors are looking for, even though I'm still doing all that work. You need to find like a decent way to get an idea out that's not predicated on it looking like a final. Like you need to have it be thumbnail-y. I'll sketch something right here so you can just kind of see. This is what my stuff looks like when I'm sketching for my initial thumbnails. I'm like, here you go, here's a guy's head, Here's some armor pieces. It goes around like this. There's his chest piece, his shoulders, his arm. He's got some maybe like armor on his back or something like that. He's got a mask on. I don't know. But having a brush like this really helps me imply a bunch of stuff. So what I'll do is I'll do like a really quick character concept sketch like this, right? And I'm thinking about the silhouette a lot because that's kind of this song got me. I have to skip. It's gonna break me. Not that this is much better, but anyway, I do this sort of thing, and then I'll just kind of flip my canvas, lower the opacity way down, like that, and then I do a really quick iteration on top with a slightly smaller brush using the same brush, and then just kind of try and figure out what those shapes are. Like, I'm quick with this right now because I just do it every day, all day. So that's, you know, that's why it's easier for me. It's just my job. So I can't focus with this music. It's killing me. Help. So I do my whole character concept like this, just to get ideas down, and then I'll do that over and over and over again. Like I will just keep on roughing in concepts like this. But a brush like this, I have a lot of control, and I also get a lot of, you know, what you'd call like happy accidents. And then what I'll do is I'll take these sketches, and then I'll bring these into either Photoshop or Clip Studio, and I'll use like a pencil brush or a chalk brush, and I'll do final lines on top of this now that I have a basic idea of the character concept that I want to finish. But yeah, that's my general process for character concept art. So yeah, you just constantly like refine and refine, and that's pretty much what I do. There you go. So I can do concepts like real fast like that because of the process, and it's pretty easy after a lot of practice. You just kind of do it every day, and then eventually you hope something clicks. But I think the process that I've been sharing on like Patreon and whatnot, like, and what I'm about to share, I'm going to kind of take it and show like the concept art version of it, the painted version of it, the, you know, the strictly line art version of it, and whatever that I've been doing now that I feel really confident with. But yeah, that'll be up there if you want to see like in-depth videos and things. But it's pretty much what I just showed you. I'm drinking scotch. It's delicious. Super delicious. So, Korean peoples ask, what is the best way to get a commission from Magic? Are they still hiring with AI art out there? Oh yeah. There's so much legal whatever shit you got to deal with if you're going to do AI that they're not doing AI. And the blowback they'd get from artists would just abandon ship if they did that. So they're not going to dispense with artists, not after their entire product is based around artists, and also like a lot of personalities, you know, like people are fans of specific artists for Magic. So it would be fucking nuts if Magic was like, you know, under artists on the card it just said, you know, they use the whatever they're called, they use that initial write-up as this person. This is a Seb McKinnon. That's what I typed into Midjourney. Seb McKinnon. The prompt. Well, the best way to get magic work is to do work that looks like magic work. That's the quickest answer I can give you for that. The next thing you got to do is put your stuff in front of art directors who work on magic. You need to be seen in that community. Those people need to know you exist. If they don't know you exist, you won't get hired for it. So you have to make sure that people know who you are, they know that you're aiming for magic, and that you're letting them know that that's what you want to do. And then if you can find emails from art directors, or you can find whatever they do now for their art drop email, then you reach out to that. I'll tell you how I got Magic the Gathering. I started working for Dragon magazine first, back in, I don't know, 2007, 2009, I don't remember. And they hired me to do just kind of, I guess what you'd call editorial illustration for little things that were in Dragon magazine, which was a D&D magazine. I got that by sending off my portfolio 2 or 3 times to an art drop email, which was the place where you'd submit your portfolio in order to be considered for a job at Wizards in some capacity. So I started with a portfolio that had RPG-like stuff. I had worked for a company called War Machine, not Warhammer. It was like a different tabletop RPG. And I did a bunch of stuff for them. I leveraged all of that work that I did for them for my Magic or Wizards of the Coast portfolio, which I submitted to the art drop. And then from that point, I just tried to keep in my head, like, work on these Dragon magazine articles that don't pay very much. Work as if I'm being hired to do card art for Magic. Just create what I think that caliber of artwork should be. And then I did that enough times where I was pretty transparent with the art director what my goal was. I was like, you know, ultimately I want to jump into Magic. I was like, so whenever you think I'm ready for that, you know, please send my name along, because that's what I really want to do. And after working for Dragon magazine and then Dungeons and Dragons after that, I got to do Magic cards. And then I still do Magic cards here and there. It's probably like the least common job I got now, because I just don't take it as much. I get offered a lot, but I don't really tend to do it as much because I like doing game art more now. But yeah, that's how I got into it. Yeah, I'm 36 next month. I was just looking at the chat real quick. You just gotta put in the time and work like crazy. I mean, it doesn't really matter how old you are. Just sit down and put in the work. There's no trick to getting most work. I hesitate to say there's absolutely no trick, because if I had to say there was any kind of trick to getting work, it would be networking. You can be just a great person with an okay portfolio and get work because you know people. You can do that. And that's just as valid as any other approach. If you're a person that people love to work with, then absolutely you can get work that way. And then you just continue working hard and trying your best, growing. Never get complacent. Like I've been working for 16 years, or I don't know how long, something like that. And even though I've done like movie posters and worked on tons of games and movies and whatever, I still constantly think about how I could improve myself. That's like my main focus. And that's the only way I've grown or gotten better work or just achieved dreams of mine. Like, that's how you do it. Don't work to, like, I'll mention this like every stream if I have to. Never work to what you think you're worth against somebody's budget. So if somebody's paying you X amount of dollars, and you go, I'm worth way more than that. You know, if that's your mindset, then you go into that and you spend every day working on stuff like that, and you always think you're better than the job you're working on and that you deserve to be paid more, you're gonna end up really fucking yourself over, because you should be working on all of those jobs as if they're those high-end jobs, because eventually those jobs that suck and don't pay you anything will be the footholds you need to climb up to the next level. You're going to need to use that time wisely to improve yourself and not be like, okay, I put in X amount of dollars worth of work today, so I'm done. Don't think that way. I see that way too much with people, and I'm like, that's such a bad way of thinking about it, because it's so hard to dig yourself out of a hole that way. Like, how do you ever improve if you always think a job is below you and you put in an effort that is below your top tier effort? Christian Butler was saying, ever since I first started following you and became part of the Crimson Daggers, the old study group, there was really only one consistent factor I saw: always doing your best work and being passionate. Those you work with seems to be the best impact and garner attention. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, how are you treating your artwork and how you put in time? Is it just a job for you? Is it just money? It's like, if that's the case, then you're probably not going to succeed. Like, you should do good work because you're getting paid for. A. Wassam says, how do you practice and learn design? I understand that drawing is about doing studies, but design is more about personal taste. How do you develop that? Well, it's like you said, it's personal, so I'm not going to tell you. No, that's not what I meant. It is personal in the way that it's coming from your past experience. So I think that for me, it's all drawn from a ton of different resources. Like, I have tons of art books and things from when I was a kid. I played, I don't know how many RPGs, like hundreds of RPGs when I was a kid. I just loved books. I read a lot. And I always kind of envisioned designs in my head of things I was imagining or whatever from things I was consuming. Like, even insofar as like a Nintendo game's design, they would be very pixelated and small, and I would draw my notebooks or whatever. Like, what did I think they looked like if they were fully realized? It's like that sort of stuff is kind of how I initially got into it. And then I think over time, it's just whatever I gravitate towards design-wise. And then it's analyzing, why do I like those designs? What is it about their placement, the silhouette? Like, what about the colors? Like, what makes this thing work? Are there fundamental principles to designing characters and scenes and everything else, and just like a whole art style, an art direction for something? Like, why is Dark Souls different than every other Gothic type of medieval fantasy? What is it about it that gives it an identity? Same thing with like Breath of the Wild. What is it about that style that is specifically Zelda? How come when Genshin Impact does it, people go like, oh, that's Zelda? Why? Can you explain why? It's like, if you start to understand like the reason why things work the way that they do, then you can start to replicate those things in your own way. And it's about kind of figuring out through studying, not in the way that like you're just drawing it over and over again, but studying, why is that cool? Like, why is that an attractive design to me? What gives that thing its clear identity? Why is Otomo's manga so different than whatever? It's like all of those things, I think, help you kind of find your own taste. And it makes it much easier to kind of analyze your own work as well and figure out what you're trying to do and when you're straying from that path and all that. Jamie says, I'm having issues juggling refining my black and white comic style and practicing painting and rendering bigger illustrations. I always feel like I'm neglecting one. Any advice? God, I mean, really just setting aside time to do one or the other. I tend to do both, but it's mostly because I became, in like a small circle in my industry, known for doing like a line style for concept art. So I get hired to do that, and that way I'm able to maintain both. But if I weren't doing that, I would just kind of do it anyway. I would just find time to draw and paint and balance things out. There's no reason you can't do both. I try to do everything. I do full paintings. I've tried animation in the past. I've done big old comics, design. I'm doing a full like comic art style for a video game and working with people who make, you know, shaders and designing like how everything's going to look to specifically adhere to the drawings. And yeah, there's a ton of stuff that you can do. We just got wheezed. Sorry. I just had a feeling that would get the stream blocked. Eric saying the thing I miss most of all is before games figured it out and sanitized their aesthetics. I feel like you just don't get stuff like Terada's Zelda art these days. I think you do, but it's in kind of indie games and things like that. So you still get it in like Hades. You still get it in, I don't know, lack of a better example, like Shovel Knight. Like there's a bunch of stuff that has like a clear look to it, an identity, but it's less of the big titles because they need to worry about their gigantic budgets. It's like they need to see a return on that, and unfortunately people find safety in stuff that they know has worked in the past, so that's what they replicate, which is all, you know, fear-based. Just kind of like, I need to make that money back, need to make back money on that investment, which is like, it's understandable how you think that way, but clearly it doesn't make a ton of sense if you're trying to go for like an original vision. What characters am I doing today? This is the Ginyu Force. Right now I'm painting the famous character, Raccoon. What's the size of my canvas? This one's about 10,000 pixels tall by wide. Do I find it hard to find inspiring art that's different after all these years? No way. I actually think there's, like, in terms of when I started, there's way more stuff now. It was way more limited when I started. But then the people that were in place and a lot of the game studios and things that I knew were like extremely talented. So it's not that it was like bad, but you know, there was a ton of people kind of doing the same thing. We just didn't have as much exposure to things that were like, I wouldn't say exposure in the sense that like we didn't have art history. It's like, of course you have that. You have like, you can do anything. But like what it ended up being, I think, is there weren't as many examples of styles that worked financially in a broad range of things that people are interested in, because there's so many ways to get into the game space and have them be applicable for different, you know, like indie games and triple I indie games, like whatever. There's so much that you can do, and the variety is, it's just way more. Like I remember when this all kind of got going, like I worked with the Super Meat Boy guys back in the day, and that was like the beginning of all, like right around when like Braid kind of set up indie games as like a major competitor for AAA games. Like that whole thing was just getting rolling, and I got to see the whole transition into this way more open field, like where style and whatever, like there could be such a large variety. Not everything needed to be like these big shooter games that were all very samey. You could kind of do, it was like starting to get to the point where you could kind of do anything.
I know it hurts. You know I'd quench that thirst. I could just say you're lonely. I say you think about it, 'cause you're the only one who resonates.
Will the Patreon have this specific file? Yeah, my Patreon has everything. There's literal years worth of content on there. All the videos, all the files, everything's up there. Most of the things, well, I wouldn't say most. I'd say pretty much everything I do that's personal goes up on there. For the past 2 years. So if you ever see anything of mine, there's a good chance it's on Patreon, the full PSD breakdown, steps, possibly video, and then high-res files and things.
I can fucking say you want me. I say you live without it, unless you're the only one who instigates. Get your mouth open, your heart higher than a motherfucker, dreaming of your love. Flying like a screaming
Hey Riley, You're saying that you're almost done with your comic, but you have no clue what to do for the font. For anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, we have a comic challenge on the Patreon Discord. So that's what he's talking about. When in doubt, I would say it's always better to handwrite it. Like if you feel like the font is killing the feeling of your comic, which it really like often does, I would say write it. Just handwrite it. It's way better than using like a shitty font. Unless the font is part of the joke, then 9 times out of 10, handwriting is better. The only reason, like in the Steve Lichman comics that Dan and I do, like that comic has its own font, but that's a font that I made out of my handwriting because I just felt like every other font was so shit in terms of conveying any sort of personality that flowed with the rest of the comic. It's like you really gotta go out of your way to make it feel good. What got me into Krita? That Nikon Pinsky. Oh, is the stream cutting out? Sorry, I don't know what's going on. I see that it's kind of telling me that there's like a weird connection thing going on, but it's weird to me too. Can I change the bitrate? I don't know what's going on with it. I'm trying to up it so that it stops lagging. Eric says, to springboard off my previous question, how has your concept process evolved from the Paragon drawings? I worked on the Blue Skies phase of the game Paragon from Epic Games that ended up getting eaten by Fortnite. I've always really held that stuff up as the sort of art for games I'd like to do. How has it changed? It's really just sped up. That's really it. I've just become more efficient with it all. I've literally when I work on games, most cases I work on them for a couple months. But I've been on one game refining my approach for 2 years now, just like basically every day, and yeah, it's just gotten faster. I kind of know what I'm doing now, know what I'm after. I never really I never really wanted to put myself into a box and be like, I'm this artist, I'm a game artist, I'm an illustrator, I'm a whatever, comic artist. It's like I want to do everything. So working on something for that long is kind of similar to working on the Steve books for like a couple years, where I just became way more efficient over time. And I think because I decided like it'll be interesting to just start working on a game and help define the look and all that and just live with it for a while and see what happens. So yeah, it's just sped everything up. I'm very efficient now. I can like knock out a ton of concepts every day, and yeah. Alex says, how's life been? Long-time watcher and curious. I mean, it's great. Life is pretty, I don't know, it's very surreal. I'm in a place where it's like I can't complain about anything. Like nothing's bad. Like everything's great. My career is everything I want it to be. I get opportunities to work on all the games I've kind of hoped to touch at some point in my life. I worked on like movies and things, and it's just really bizarre. Like I have a really, and the stuff that's going on that I can't talk about, that's between Dan and I working on things, it's like all of it's so ridiculous. So I can't believe life is what it is. And that's, you know, that's just the work side of it. I also got my family, got 2 kids. I got, you know, we're about to get a house and build out a studio and everything finally. Things are just moving along, and it's just like I said, it's just a very surreal thing, because it's like what you hope for. Like when you're working constantly, you hope something like that happens, and then the payoff of, oh, everything's starting to go now. Like everything's dominoing. It's like, okay. For the past couple of years, it's like everything's just been getting nuts. And, you know, I'm just extremely grateful. I'm extremely grateful for everybody who ever gave me opportunities, and to everybody who's supported, and everybody who supports the Patreon and all that's like, it's been crazy. I just feel like nothing but like leveling up on everything. So I just feel very grateful. It's humbling when stuff starts to happen. Have you ever wanted to do or done an independent comic or art related thing? Yeah, go to stevelichman.com. We have like 700 pages of comics that you can buy. It's crazy. And we were in the we were on like the top 10 funded on Kickstarter for both of them in comics. It was nuts. That's like the biggest thing we ever did, was that. Those comics got more views than anything. But it's like people don't know that I even do that, just because they're very separate careers. Also did the Garfield hentai, which Jim Davis is a huge fan of. Just kidding, I didn't do that. I found that comic. Just in case anybody's listening who wants to try to cancel me. I was not involved in that. So close to being done with at least the sketches for this. That's satisfying. I saved the easiest dude for last. Oh. This guy's so easy to do. This alien dude in the back. It's like him. What's his name? I don't know his name. Go back. Birder. Yeah, Birder's super easy. Goldo is super easy. Zarbon. Who's Zarbon? I only know him as Goldo. Anyway. Yeah, so this dude. He was super easy just because he's very cartoony. These like kind of more anime-y faces that I'm trying to render and make them not look hideous. Those are way more challenging. It'll be easier once I have it in Photoshop and I can kind of start to blend stuff together and paint it a bit better. But yeah, I wasn't crazy about those. But Goldo came out so right that I was like, all right, I'm gonna need to just finish the rest of these guys as best I can. And then I'm gonna focus on Birder, and then Birder is gonna be my home run because he's just shapes. I don't need to convey like a cool realistic anime face, which is fucking hard. That just looks bad when you're painting. At least for me, I'm just not good at it. All right. Well, let me save this and then I'll do the thing that whatever the fuck I was gonna say. I'm gonna do the color adjustments on that dude so that you can kind of see why I keep it all low value like this. All right, let me black out my screen for a second and then I'll hop back over. All right, we're gonna save this and then jump into Photoshop. Okay. Sorry, it took a while to save that for some reason. All right, let's open this dude. Okay. Here we are. Here we go. So we got this dude. Let's do a selective color layer. Let's change these blues. So I'm just kind of darkening it all a bit. So I just kind of adjust all the values a bit till there's somewhere I'm feeling like, okay, that's pretty good for the general look. And then I'll go in and I'll use the lasso and just kind of go bit by bit. So I'm going to do his skin tone. So that'll be a selective color layer. Yeah, it's just kind of something to drop in to feel like the values are kind of there. And then what I do on top of that is I'll take like a chalk brush or kind of a dry brush looking thing, and then I go right over here and just kind of start painting and blending things together. I'm very excited to get past this whole drawing underpainting phase, because once I'm on the other side of this, I can just focus on rendering, which is so much easier than getting everything to look right. So once I have this stuff like blended a bit, because you can see how sketchy this kind of looks. Once I have this blended a bit using the brushes I have right here, like the chalk brush, dry brush looking thing, whatever, just to break up the textures and smooth things out a bit, then I'll turn this whole thing into a multiply layer, and I'll drop colors directly beneath it. So that'll be the actual flats for the characters, true skin color, hair color, armor, all that stuff. So that's why this still looks weird, but I like the strange kind of color jitter going on here. The way it influences the tones that are the flats, it gives like such a nice kind of energy to the whole thing. I really like it. So that's the reason I keep it like this, and I don't go for, oh, like here's the obvious like red and whatever tone. Like I'm not really worried about that. That's going to be the base layer that goes underneath it. I wish work was an NDA, because then I could just show you stuff that I do all the time, so you'd have a really clear idea of what I'm talking about. So anyway, you can see just what I'm doing here. I'm just adding a bit more dimension to it. Alright, I'm gonna hop off of here in a couple minutes, so if anybody has any kinds of questions, you can drop them in the chat and I will read those. So we can still purchase hard copies of Steve? Yeah, it turned out that there was a off-site warehouse that was holding a bunch of extra book bundles that I didn't know about, and I got a bill from the company that ships out our books, and I was like, why am I getting a bill? We sold out. And they were like, oh no, we had a whole offsite with extra stock for when the initial stock ran out that we were holding in-house. And I was like, oh, well then we gotta sell those. A Wasp saying, how do I find the style of French comics, especially the detailed ones? I mean, there's so many good French comics, the style and whatever. Like, so, yes, I eat them all. How long does a page of Destiny comic take you to do? Of Destiny? Maybe a day. Something like that. Favorite thing about anime and most disliked thing about anime. The thing I like the least is generally speaking, there are great ones and whatever. I'm talking like generic is story. I feel like the story in most anime is kind of whatever. Like, doesn't like compete with the best of other stuff. So it's like it to me, anime doesn't have enough of like the best of the best, whatever. But like I'll like things like My Hero Academia for like a popcorny kind of show. But yeah, in most cases the story for me is the thing that I'm just not interested in at all. My favorite thing about anime is the distortion of almost like movement and feelings, like everything's pushed to extremes and how they convey that stuff. And I find that that's very like inspiring, and also willingness to be really weird and do different things and new things, like try stuff out. I feel like anime takes a lot of risks. Were you able to dive any deeper into Elden Ring? Not really. I played it for a while on the Steam Deck, but I just kind of stopped because it was just there was a lot of things left to do in the game, and I kind of want to be all or nothing with it, and I just can't do that right now. Do I use any tools to help with drawing, like a Bluetooth remote? Yes, I use the Torbox, the Torbox Neo. That's the thing that I use I use it the whole time. You saw me painting here today. I use it every day. It's like the best compared to a keyboard. I love it. It speeds up my process so much. Besides music, what do you often listen to during work? Any favorite podcasts or audiobooks? World War II, Pacific Theater audiobooks were always like a favorite of mine. A lot of war stuff, really. Like I find that stuff very dramatic and interesting, and like that whole side of history is very compelling to me. So a lot of that. Video games, how can you even attempt them? Yeah, it's so hard. It's hard to, like, I can play something like Hades too. I mean, Hades, and hopefully Hades too, but because it's just kind of, I can pick it up and play it, and I don't need to worry about I don't need to worry about being like up to speed on a story or something, or remember where I'm at. I can just run through a dungeon.
I bet you even know where we could go when it all fucks up. You put your head in my hands. It's a souvenir for when you go. I'm in misery, but you can't seem as old as your omens. And the mother is sure will never keep your pride head from falling.
All right. I'm probably gonna hop off. But thank you all for hanging out with me through the stream. If you want to see the full breakdown video of this entire process for the Ginyu Force, you can join the Patreon. I'll have an entire series on this one where I'm just going to do full commentary, break down the whole process. But yeah, we also got the comic challenge that we're going to be wrapping up, so anybody who's a patron, watch for the stream that'll be going tomorrow night. You check that out. Last question I'll get to. What's the latest obsession that the boys are into? So my kids, let's see, what's the big one? I mean, it's Zelda, generally speaking, but that's mostly the little one. He's big into, we have like the manga, so he reads those, reads in quotes, but he knows a ton about that, and he's like obsessed with it, and he always has his swords, and he always fights me, so it's great. Yeah, and then the oldest, he's into Sonic right now, so mostly Sonic. Lots of Sonic Boom requests in the house. All right. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you all next time. Oh, yeah. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see when the next stream's going up, which is same time next week, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So you'll get a notification when that goes up.